Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through the noise, find the core insights, and basically bring them straight to you. Today, we're jumping into ZBEC Network, ZBCN. We've got a pile of recent news, some deep analysis, market takes, all focused right on ZBEC and that ZBCN token. So what's the plan? We're going to unpack what's been driving ZBEC lately, get a real handle on the tech underneath, and, explore what it all means for DeFi's future, maybe even for your own finances. Think about this. What if your paycheck wasn't every 2 weeks, but like every single second? That's the kind of, futuristic idea ZBEC Network is trying to build. Okay, let's unpack that. For someone maybe just hearing about ZBEC, what exactly is it? What's its main goal here?
Sure. So ZBEC Network, you might remember it as ZBEC Protocol, started back in 2021. It's essentially a decentralized network for payments and infrastructure. The key thing is real-time financial flows. Think of it almost like a bridge, connecting the old world of finance with blockchain. And they've got some serious backing, around $35 million from big players. We're talking Coinbase, Circle, Solana Ventures.
Yeah.
That says something.
Yeah, that's significant validation early on.
Definitely. And while they kicked things off on Solana, which made sense, for the speed and low fees, they haven't just stayed there. It's really evolved into a multi-chain thing now. They're integrated across Ethereum, BNB Smart Chain, Tron, even Sui.
Wow. Okay. So they're spreading their wings, not just sticking to one ecosystem.
Exactly. It broadens their reach massively.
That sounds like a smart way to build. But let's shift gears a bit to what's really caught people's eyes lately, the ZBCN token itself. It's been making some pretty big moves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The performance has been quite dramatic. ZBCN saw this really sharp spike. I think it was June 23rd. It jumped over 20% in just a day, trading around $0.004.
Just in 24 hours.
Just 24 hours. But zoom out a little and it's even more impressive. We're looking at maybe 440% up in the last month. And from its lowest point, something like 770% gain, it's been a rocket.
Okay, wow. Those are the kinds of numbers that get attention.
Yeah.
Which obviously brings us to the big question everyone's asking: can it keep going? Is this rebound sustainable?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to figure that out, we can't just look at the price chart. We need to dig into what's actually driving this.
Right. So beyond just the price action, what are the fundamentals? What's really pushing this rally? Anything specific jump out?
Well, one thing that definitely created some buzz was this $100,000 ZBCN reward program ZBEC ran. It was targeted specifically at XRP holders, people using the Uphold exchange. They announced it mid-June. The condition was holding at least $50,000 worth of XRP back on June 11th.
Interesting target audience. Why XRP holders specifically?
Well, it seems like a pretty strategic play. You're targeting high net worth crypto holders, right?
Yeah.
And you're tapping into Ripple's community, which is known for being quite loyal.
Yeah.
It's a way to expand ZBEC's user base quickly. Now, there's no official partnership confirmed between ZBEC and Ripple, let's be clear. But that campaign, it definitely got people talking, speculating about, maybe deeper connections down the line, generated a lot of noise.
Okay, so that was one piece. But then, just a few days later, they announced something else pretty major, didn't they? An alliance.
They did. ZBEC officially joined the Circle Alliance.
And Circle, of course, is behind USDC, the stablecoin.
Exactly. And this is a big deal. It means USDC gets integrated directly into ZBEC's whole payment system. Their payroll, their crypto cards, the silver, carbon, black ones. USDC actually becomes the default currency for those.
Okay, that sounds significant. What does that practically mean for ZBEC?
Well, first, it adds a huge layer of legitimacy, right? Working closely with Circle and USDC. It potentially opens doors for enterprise adoption, think real-time payroll for businesses, automating financial flows. That's a massive market. And it just signals really clearly that ZBEC is focused on practical, real-world uses, not just speculative hype.
Building actual utility. What's also interesting is they're not just partnering up. They're actually buying companies too, making acquisitions. What's the strategy there?
Yeah, they've made a couple of really smart strategic acquisitions. First, their Science Card. Their focus is on bringing crypto into the education sector. So think students, researchers using crypto for campus spending or funding research projects. It's a unique niche.
Okay, interesting angle.
And then second, they acquired GateKnox. Gatenox brings in some serious tools for KYC, Know Your Customer, and KYB, Know Your Business, plus AML, anti-money laundering stuff.
Ah, so compliance focused.
Exactly. It builds those advanced compliance tools right into the ZBEC ecosystem. Taken together, these acquisitions show kind of dual approach. They're pushing into specific real-world sectors like education, but at the same time, they're really shoring up their foundations with top-notch regulatory tech. It makes them look much more ready for prime time, aligning with rules like MiCA in Europe or FCA in the UK.
So expansion and compliance hand in hand.
You got it. Plus, they're also working with others like Chainlink and Ondo Finance, which helps boost their tech for real-time payments and DeFi stuff.
Okay, so let's pull back the curtain, as you say. How does ZBEC actually do this streaming money thing? Paying someone every second sounds, well, technically complex. What's the magic?
Yeah, it's definitely ambitious, but the core idea is enabling programmable instant money transfers. So instead of waiting 2 weeks for a paycheck, it flows continuously in real time right onto the blockchain. Same for things like remittances. What makes it really practical, though, is how they've managed to integrate smoothly with existing Visa and MasterCard networks.
Oh, really? So you can actually spend it easily?
Right. That's key for real-world use today. It's not just some abstract blockchain concept. They've built specific tech to support this. There's something called ZAI. ZBAI. It's an AI layer that handles things like fraud detection, making sure compliance rules are met, monitoring transactions intelligently, adds security.
Okay, an AI watchdog.
Sort of, yeah. Then there's ZPIN, that stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. This is pretty cool. It combines actual hardware, like payment terminals you might see in a shop.
Like a point-of-sale machine.
Exactly, those kinds of things. It combines that IoT hardware with their blockchain software to enable crypto payments in the physical world. This ties into that whole DePIN trend, decentralized physical infrastructure, which is getting a lot of attention, connecting digital assets to real-world actions.
Right, bridging the gap.
And finally, you have the products people actually use, ZBEC Pay and the ZBEC cards. These let you receive your crypto, manage it, and spend it pretty much like regular money, fiat currency. And like we mentioned, integrations with Apple Pay, Google Pay, makes it super easy.
So it's a whole stack, from the base layer security up to the user-facing apps and cards.
Yeah, it's designed to be a very integrated system for moving value securely and instantly.
That makes sense. It sounds like a well-thought-out ecosystem. Which naturally leads to the token itself, ZBCN. What role does it play in all this? Is it just for voting, or does it have deeper utility?
Oh, ZBCN is definitely central. It's the native utility token and the governance token for the network. It actually evolved from an older token, ZBC. They did a 1-to-10 split back in 2024. The idea behind that was to simplify fees, boost liquidity, and just generally expand what the token could do. Total supply is capped at 100 billion.
Okay, so what can you do with it?
Well, several things. It's used for paying transaction fees and bridging fees when you move assets across chains on the network. And interestingly, a part of those fees gets burned.
Ah, the deflationary model we mentioned.
Exactly. That helps create scarcity over time, which token holders generally like. It's also woven into their products, the payroll apps, the crypto cards. You use it for certain functions or maybe get benefits for holding it. Real-world spending integration. Plus, you can stake ZBCN. They offer pretty attractive yields, up to maybe 15% APY sometimes. Staking or holding also gets you premium perks, lower fees, maybe early access to new features or products.
And the governance part.
Right. Holders get to vote on ZIP's ZBEC improvement proposals. They have this kind of hybrid DAO model for community governance, and they actively try to incentivize usage through things like buybacks funded by product revenue, airdrops from partners, and grants for developers building on ZBEC. It's all designed to drive demand and utility for ZBCN.
Okay, so it sounds like the token is pretty well integrated. Given all the strategic moves, the tech, the tokenomics, what's the market actually thinking about ZBCN right now? If you look at the charts, the technicals, what story do they tell?
Well, as we said, it's been volatile this year, 2025. It started the year back in April 2024, actually, around 0.000246. Then it peaked up near 0.00071 M in late May 2025, before pulling back to that 0.004 range we saw in mid-June. Now, if you look at the technical indicators, the oscillators like RSI and stochastics, they're mostly showing neutral.
Meaning not extremely overbought or oversold?
Correct. It suggests there's kind of a balance between buyers and sellers right now. No extreme sentiment in either direction based on those specific tools. However, some of the momentum indicators and the MACD in the very short term were actually flashing sell signals recently.
Okay, so maybe some short-term downward pressure.
Potentially, yes. But, and this is important, the moving averages give a mixed picture. The short-term ones might say sell, but the longer-term ones, like the 50-day, are still suggesting buy. This often indicates short-term weakness, but underlying long-term strength, maybe consolidating above its recent trend.
And you mentioned a chart pattern earlier.
Yeah, the falling wedge. This is a pattern technical analysts watch closely. You have this downtrend since June, but the price swings are getting tighter, converging. Typically, this is seen as a bullish pattern. It often breaks out upwards. If ZBCN breaks above that, say 0.004 level decisively, the technical targets could be around 0.00063.
Which is a pretty nice jump from
A very nice jump, yeah, potentially 70-something% upside, or even testing that 0.0007 level again. And crucially, that previous all-time high around 0.0034. That zone seems to have become strong support now. Price has bounced off it. Flipping resistance into support is usually very bullish.
Okay. What about the MACD you mentioned? Any more detail there?
Sure. On the really short time frames, like the 1-hour chart, we were seeing green bars suggesting some buying pressure. The 4-hour was trending up generally, but analysts were waiting for a clear bullish crossover signal. But the most interesting one, perhaps, is the 1-day chart. The MACD there showed these red bars getting shorter. That often signals that the bearish momentum, the selling pressure, is running out of steam. If that leads to a bullish crossover on the daily chart, that could be a very strong buy signal for medium-term traders.
That's a lot to digest on the technical front. Now, how does this connect to the wider crypto market? Are there external forces we should be watching that could really impact ZBCN? And, how much faith can we put in these broader market indicators?
That's a great question because no coin is an island, right? Mm-hmm. You absolutely have to look at the broader market context. And what's interesting is we're seeing similar kinds of bullish chart patterns potentially forming in other crypto assets too. You mentioned XEN earlier. It has a similar falling wedge, and its daily MACD crossover already happened, which could be a leading indicator. Even Bitcoin itself is showing what looks like a bull flag pattern. If that breaks upwards, analysts are talking about potential moves above $109,000, setting new all-time highs.
And a rising tide lifts all boats, presumably.
Generally, yes, especially in crypto. A strong Bitcoin tends to pull the rest of the market, particularly altcoins like ZBCN, up with it. And there's a deeper factor here. Global liquidity. There's a pretty strong historical correlation between Bitcoin's price and the amount of liquidity sloshing around the global financial system. Over the last, say, 3 months or so, global liquidity has been absolutely exploding upwards.
Meaning more money potentially flowing into risk assets like crypto.
That's the theory, yes. More capital available often finds its way into crypto markets, which would obviously benefit ZBCN. So for longer-term monitoring, beyond just ZBCN's chart, there are 2 key external indicators I'd suggest keeping an eye on. One is the altcoin season index. You generally want to see that index above 75. That signals that altcoins, broadly, are outperforming Bitcoin, which is usually when you see the biggest gains in tokens like ZBCN.
Okay, altcoin season index above 75. What's the other one?
The crypto fear and greed index. When that index gets really high, say above 80, it indicates widespread euphoria and extreme greed in the market.
Which sounds bad, but can actually be good for prices.
In the short to medium term, yes. While extreme greed can signal a top is near, those periods of euphoria are often when prices make their most parabolic moves. When you get both conditions, altcoin season index high and fear and greed index high, that's historically been the sweet spot for massive altcoin rallies, like in past bull cycles.
Are they foolproof predictors?
Oh, definitely not foolproof. They're sentiment indicators reflecting market psychology. They can stay elevated or depressed for a while, but they provide really valuable context for understanding the overall market environment ZBCN is operating in.
It sounds like there are quite a few potential positives lining up. But let's play devil's advocate. No project is perfect. What are the risks? What are the potential headwinds or challenges that ZBEC faces that maybe aren't immediately obvious?
That's crucial. Definitely need to consider the risks. One historical concern has been Solana's network stability. They've had outages in the past. Now, they've made upgrades in 2025 aiming to fix this. But for a real-time payment network like ZBEC,
uptime is everything.
Exactly. Any significant downtime could really hurt user confidence and adoption, so that remains a background risk, even if reduced. Another point is potential token inflation. We talked about the 100 billion total supply. Currently, something like 84.56 billion are circulating. Ongoing validator rewards and maybe future airdrops could continue to release more tokens, potentially putting some downward pressure on the price if demand doesn't keep pace.
Makes sense. What about competition?
Yeah, competition is definitely heating up. There are other protocols focused on payment streaming like Superfluid or SabLayer. They might approach it differently, but they're in the same space. And then you have the broader category of crypto neobanks, which are also trying to bridge crypto and traditional finance, offering cards and payment solutions. It's getting crowded.
So they need to keep innovating to stay ahead.
Absolutely. And one more challenge is enterprise adoption. While the potential is huge, getting large businesses to switch their payroll systems to a crypto-based solution, that can be slow. There might be regulatory hurdles or just the inertia of existing systems and the need for staff training. Adoption might be slower than some optimistic projections hope for.
Okay, so weighing the potential against those challenges, what does this mean looking forward? What are some realistic price predictions people are throwing around for ZBCN? And maybe more importantly, what catalysts on their roadmap should we watch for?
Right, the crystal ball gazing part. Well, for 2025, the price predictions are quite broad, understandably. They generally range from maybe a low of 0.0001 time up to a high of 0.008. Where it lands will really depend on overall market conditions. What Bitcoin does and how well ZBEC executes on adoption this year.
And looking a bit further out, say 2026, 2027.
Estimates there tend to cluster between 0.002 and SICK and 0.005. Although if that ZIMPN physical infrastructure network really takes off and gains traction...
The dip and angle.
Yeah, if that gets big, some see potential for higher valuations in that time frame. Long-term, thinking out to 2030, projections often range from 0.0003 to maybe hitting 0.001 cents. That reflects the expectation that utility and integration will steadily increase over the decade.
Okay, those are general ranges. What about specific targets based on the technical analysis you mentioned earlier?
Right. If the current bullish structure holds and we see that breakout from the falling wedge, technical analysts often look at Fibonacci extension levels. The next sort of natural target based on the recent moves might be just under that 0.001 cent mark, maybe around the 1.618 fib level. After that, potentially 0.011 T is which corresponds to the 2 fib level. But the main targets people are eyeing for this cycle, potentially in 2025 if the bull market really kicks into high gear, could be significantly higher, like 0.047, the 2.618 fib level, and then there's always the big psychological level, 10 cents, $0.00. That's often a major target in bull runs.
Ambitious targets, but plausible if everything aligns.
Yeah.
What about their roadmap? Any specific things coming up?
Yeah, their 2025 roadmap looks busy. They're planning integrations with more layer 2 scaling solutions like Arbitrum and Optimism. That should help with fees and transaction speed. They're also planning new tools for their DAO, improving governance, and importantly, more development on the hardware side for payroll solutions, really leaning into that DePIN trend we keep mentioning. Those are key catalysts to watch.
Okay, so wrapping things up, ZBEC Network seems to be carving out a really interesting space for itself. It's not just another DeFi protocol. It's focused heavily on these tangible, real-world financial applications. Things like payroll, everyday payments with crypto cards, building out that physical infrastructure link. And it feels quite grounded.
I agree. It positions itself as, well, almost critical infrastructure for how work and payments might evolve. It's trying to be that bridge between how finance works now and how it could work in a Web3 future.
It really does aim to connect the dots between traditional finance and this emerging decentralized economy. So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. How might this whole concept of streaming money, getting paid instantly, continuously, how might that fundamentally change the way you think about your budget, your earnings, or just the whole rhythm of receiving your salary in the years ahead? Something to ponder.